So people will ask, well, exactly what's the process of Section 7 consultation? So we know we have to do it. We know the intent is to make sure that an action by a federal agency is not likely to jeopardize a listed species or destroy or adversely modify designated critical habitat. But what does the process look like? What are the steps? And I guess you can think about it as two phases. Phase one is the action agencies, the federal action agencies' examination of their action and what the impacts are going to be. And then phase two is the Fish and Wildlife Service, or NOAA's, analysis of what that action agency's impacts are and how that relates to the larger species across its range as a listed entity. So phase one, phase two. If we take phase one, the action agency deconstructs its action so it understands all the pieces. And through that deconstruction and taking it apart and understanding the tasks of their action, they begin to see where that action can impact the environment, the land, water, or air. And it allows them to draw somewhat of a polygon. With that in mind, with an area that they're going to impact, they can go to the Fish and Wildlife Service or NOAA and say, in this area, what species may be present that I'm going to need to think about because my action may impact them. Armed with that species list, they go back and start to assemble an understanding of the species presence in that action area, what the species is doing in that action area. And we're talking about individuals at this point of that listed species and any designated critical habitat. After they've compiled that information, they have a good sense of what is likely to happen to that species or critical habitat as a result of the impacts that they're going to have from their action. That information is put together and then it is sent over to the Fish and Wildlife Service and they initiate consultation. That's phase two. Now, all during phase one, we would hope that the service and the action agency are sharing technical information, sharing information about the project, about the species, so that that assessment or that information that the action agency is putting together is a good, solid understanding of the likely impact to the individuals of the species. So in phase two, when that information comes into the Fish and Wildlife Service or NOAA, we will take that information that was at a local level, at the project scale, if you will, and we'll step back and say, all right, we understand the condition of the species across its range. And if we take this local impact and we examine it under the lens of across the range condition of the species and other impacts and threats that may be affecting the condition of that species, does it meet our regulatory definition for likely to jeopardize? And that's not extinction. Likely to jeopardize is a specific regulatory definition, but it's not extinction. So as we look at that and we analyze that, we produce what's called a biological opinion as to whether we think the impact of that action added to the baseline and the status of the species across its range is likely to hit that threshold of likely to jeopardize the species. And that's basically the process, phase one and phase two, of how we get from a federal action all the way through to a biological opinion as to whether they have jeopardized or whether the project is likely to jeopardize the species.